Should be doing it.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, cool. Hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. We have got Parul Singh with us, who works at Manhattan Partners. She's going to be doing a presentation for us around personal branding. She is an absolute superstar at it, probably one of the best people that I've seen on LinkedIn. So she is the go-to person to sort of speak to about this. So Parul, if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you're going to be doing today and talking to everyone about.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction, Alice, and also to you and Kirsty for organising all of this. Absolutely impeccable organisation. Personal brands is a topic that I'm personally really, really passionate about because I am a tech recruiter for Manhattan Partners, also a mental health advocate, and I based around like Manchester, so specialise in like the JavaScript space. I'll go a little bit more into specifically kind of what I do, but how personal brands fits in with what I do and how it fits into tech as well. So, I talk to, hiring managers on a daily basis, and I know the sorts of things that they actually tend to look for in like candidates, specifically on like, the junior side. It is really like competitive. And I do think that, I think just having like a CV and maybe a LinkedIn profile is not enough. Building a presence online, I think, is really, really important for not even just getting your foot in the door at the start of your career, but presenting you with opportunities that you would never really know much about. So in terms of some of the things that I do, like I'm here today, I like doing some of the external talks. I did one 2 weeks ago at Manchester Web Meetup on mental health in the workplace. So I've had some training with that. So that's probably where my personal brand started kicking off a little bit more. I also do a video series called Bites with Parul. So they're like little bite-sized videos. I know we did it like BYTES. So it was sort of like play on words.
I really like that. It's really good.
Yeah. And my boss did like the branding, so it looks like a sort of like techie sort of text. So it's like, bites. So, with that, I bring out bite-sized bits of information to people covering from like tech, well-being, recruitment, career advice. So that's a part of my brand too. And I've also been learning to code in my spare time over like the past year or so. So that's been quite like an interesting hobby. So I feel like I position myself as a person that understands things on both sides of the coins, not just as a recruiter, but also as a peer that knows the tech and the industry really well. And obviously, like from my accent, I'm originally from Liverpool, but I live in Manchester. So I've been here for about like 7 years now. And outside of work, I really like eating. I love cooking. I love dogs. I'm partial to a good G&T and an iced coffee. Honestly, with anything, I would just look for like socialising. That's why I love going to meetups or seeing my friends on the weekend. I'm like a really outgoing person. Probably a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
Don't know when to stop.
Definitely iced coffee season at the moment. I went to the coffee shop today and just got 2 for myself. I felt really greedy. I just needed
it. What's your favourite iced coffee?
I just get like ice latte but with oat milk.
Oh, okay. Very vegan.
But I'm not vegan. Like I love vegan cheese, so I'm not vegan at all, but it just tastes really nice. It just tastes a bit different. What about you?
Yeah, I like that. I do. If I'm going to Starbucks, I do like a frappuccino, and like the only one local to me is like a Costa coffee. So that's actually where I'm going to go afterwards. Just as a little post-sport treat.
You deserve it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, did you want to get started with your presentation then? If anybody has any questions during the chat, please feel free to use the comment section. I'll keep an eye on those. You can also feel free to private message me anything if you don't want your name to come up. This session is being recorded as well. So if you do have to drop off for whatever reason, just let me know or let Parul know, and we'll have a recording for that we can send over to you. But yeah, I'll leave it to you, Parul, if you want to start with your presentation. And we're looking forward to it.
Sounds good. Cool. And just before I start as well, now you're about to share the screen, there's obviously a fair bit of like content on the slides, and I'm happy to share this either through you or through LinkedIn. So don't worry about kind of having to make notes on everything, and there will be some resources at the end as well.
Perfect. You're very organised. Thank you. Cool. I'll let you go ahead then. Cheers, Parul.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. So hopefully, everybody can see what's on the screen now. So this is. It's a very funky presentation that I've made. So this is me talking about personal brand, what a personal brand is, how I built up my personal brand, what are the different sorts of like platforms that you can do it, and some tips and tricks for what I have learned along the way. So just really quickly as I start, if it will go on to the next page. I feel like when I'm like share like on a video and like sharing my screen, my laptop just goes into a meltdown. There we go. Oh no, it's gone too far.
It looks like it's working.
Every time. Bring it back. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So content. So again, obviously giving you a little bit of an intro. I'll give you like some context as well and talk to you about the brands, different platforms. I'll give you some content ideas in terms of like what you can share and some tips that I think there's like some quite general ones that I'd see a lot of the same. But I'm definitely going to give you some that I guarantee like you've definitely not heard anywhere before. So, stick with it till the end. So here we go. Going to the next slide now. It really doesn't like me. Okay. So, I mean, obviously gave you a little bit of an intro in the beginning. This page is basically me in a nutshell. If you want to scan that QR code on the bottom right, it will take you to a link tree. I don't know if that's covered by the personal branding workshop. If it is, all good. I can just, there we go. All good. Just so, just so that you can get like the YouTube and podcasts and everything. So yeah, this is me. Been learning to code, work at Manhattan Partners for anybody who has just joined in as a JavaScript recruitment consultant. And I have built my personal brand, which has grown exponentially over, I would say, about like the last 12 months. I'll actually show you some screenshots as well about how much it's actually changed in terms of the engagement that I get. And that's because I now join a company where we have a really big emphasis on this, get out in the market and get your name out there, build the brand and find your niche. And I feel like me finding my niche in the beginning was writing posts about learning to code, because people really like that, because it's something that other recruiters were just simply not doing or actually properly investing their time in. And then also like mental health stuff. So, I was allowing myself to be quite vulnerable and open about some of like my struggles and challenges that a lot of people can like associate with. I think that's pretty much everything on me as well. There's a nice little Bitmoji of me passed out on a pile of food. I'm also one of the co-organisers of Manchester Web Meetup, and I volunteer for Code Your Future as well. So please do check both of those out. So talking about what is a personal brand. So I actually didn't know I was building a personal brand until I did a video podcast on this a while ago. I didn't actually know that there was like a title for it. So essentially, if you look at that image on the screen, these are like company brands. As soon as you look at that, you can immediately identify all of those things. What are McDonald's known for, like most common fast food chain? What are Apple known for? All of the electronics and products and Apple Music and all those things. So similar to that, a personal brand is what are you known for? How do you promote yourself? What is your presence online? And how do you engage with your community? So that is you like building your own brand. That is how I would describe it anyway. There's quite a few different platforms to do these, to sort of like actually like build your brand. And I'll tell you about like the different ones and what they're good for. I think one common misconception that people have is it takes a lot of time commitment and that you have to post original content every day. So, you think about YouTube, like content creators and how much time and effort they actually put into it. Like that is great. You can do that. But for people who are working in a job and they're learning to code outside of work, like you don't have time for that. So the two other really good platforms for that, I would say, if you have less time to invest, are LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. Yes, thank you, Yusuf. I know you just put that in the chat. So I didn't get a chance to sort of obviously put all of those in. LinkedIn is a really good platform for reaching out to recruiters and hiring managers. So building a brand there. And I also think it's quite easy to get high engagement on your posts, even if you have a small network. Because when somebody likes your post, it comes up in other people's feed. You know, it'll say like Parul Singh liked Yusuf's post, and it comes up even if people aren't connected with Yusuf, which is great for exposure. And it's a little bit easier to map things out. You know, you can obviously connect with hiring managers and developers that work in the companies in like your area as well. So one thing that you want to do with LinkedIn is you want to grow your connections list, and you want to connect with people that are actually in your industry as well. If you're just connecting with people who, I don't know, like product managers in like the US or something as random as I can think of, it's probably good. They might engage with your content, but it's not really going to get you anywhere. So focus on the area that you're actually looking at. And I would say a good number to start off with, you know, frequency for posting on LinkedIn is once every few days. Every day can be a little bit too much. So people think that they have to post every day to build a brand. It's definitely not the case on LinkedIn, I would say. Twitter is really good as well. Like I personally, I mean, I've been in tech recruitment for over 2.5 years, and I only really started using Twitter to build my brand probably like the back end of last year. And I did not realize like how big of a community there is. And it is really easy just to tweet things, and people don't feel obligated to keep it like 100% like professional. So I tweet about, you know, if you go on my Twitter page, you'll see me tweeting about loads of random stuff, in amongst that like some tech. So which is quite nice because people can see that side of you. And that is important in a brand. You don't want to make it artificial. You don't want to have this like really professional front. You know, I just write about like tech stuff. And people like me and recruiters and hiring managers really, really love it. And a little story about like Twitter. So a couple of hiring managers I've spoken to, when they're looking for junior talent, they have said to me that they get people come up on their feeds, and tweeting with hashtags is a really, really good way to build this brand. So there's a few different hashtags. If anybody has any that they use, stick them in the comments now. I know a few of them which are sort of like, you know, hashtag code newbie, hashtag girls who code, hashtag 100 days of code. So there's lots of those different ones that you can use, and that actually gets you more exposure. I think the only downside with Twitter as well is that it's a little bit difficult to focus it around your area. So you can't specifically search for people in like different locations. So what your best shot is find some key people in your community and look at who they follow and look at who follows them. Then go through their followers and then follow them and then their followers and like so on. That way you can grow your list like quite quickly. I would recommend that's a really, really good way to do it. And then if you don't, you can, there's another sort of obviously category, which is like blogging. So I know Yusuf, who was watching, he actually has a blog, which, you know, he's built like his website and he does everything on there. You can publish on dev.to, you can publish on medium.com, but that's sort of the only one. I did go to a talk that Yusuf did last week. So he's just finished his degree, and he, you know, credits getting a part-time junior role while studying to actually building a brand. And he said that the way that his actually really kicked off was through Instagram, again, using the hashtags. And he wasn't doing anything, you know, these are his own words as well, by the way, I'm not discrediting it. He said he wasn't doing anything like groundbreaking. He wasn't posting about some really intricate like technical things. He would just post pictures of like his setup or like what he's working on that day or like some of the challenges that he's faced. So it's literally just something as simple as that, really. You don't have to go too deep with it.
Yeah, I think sometimes people get scared about what to post. I know lots of the students will speak to me, so I really don't know like what should my starting point be, what should I say. But I agree with like personal posts, I think work really well. Just like letting people what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Because they're probably going to relate and want to just chime in and have their say as well. So I really agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how I started off. I'll show you a couple of screenshots in a moment of some of my posts. And I literally just started off with a bullet pointed list of kind of what I've learned in my first 3 months of like coding, not specifically like the technical side, but kind of, what is a little bit more challenging, like how I was fitting it around
Yeah,
like work and stuff. And I got so many likes on it. And I was like,
yeah,
wow, like people actually really care about like those things. Like we don't necessarily need to know how to do this specific thing with like TypeScript and React, right? There's other forms for that. And it's good to be, I think where my brand's accelerated as well is it's being honest and being vulnerable. Like
yeah.
that's what people actually can really associate with and really bond
Mm.
about. I know not everybody's like comfortable with it. So I mean,
No.
here's a couple of like content ideas. So again, you can share articles. You can go on the website that I put earlier, dev.to. Loads of good technical articles, like particularly for web developers. So they'll have like, oh, here are 10 really helpful resources for like web development. Like all you have to do is copy and paste that and share it. Stick a few hashtags on it, and there you go. That's some really easy content. I know that polls get a little bit of stick on LinkedIn because people are like, oh, there's so many polls. But like if you're doing a good poll, like who cares? So
I
I've
love
done polls.
them.
I love a good poll,
It's
Alice.
nice
Like,
just to be able to vote on polls and press the button on someone else's poll. So I think they're good
yeah.
for engagement.
Yeah. Only thing is like, let's stop doing polls about how many days you want to work from home in the future. Because I've seen a million of
Oh,
those over the
please.
past
I
year.
know. No one
Yeah.
cares.
Yeah, like for example, a really good one that I did a while ago, which got quite a few, not just votes, but also people talking in the comments. That's the point, right? You want to start a discussion and you want people to engage with it because that gives you so much more exposure on your name. So one that I did was, would not having a salary on the job advert put you off applying? Yes, no, maybe, or they're put in the comments. And so people started talking about why they wouldn't apply to a job advert if it had a salary, why certain people said that it doesn't really matter to them and that they would like to do it anyway. And you can actually see on the bottom of like the post how many how many like views it has. So yeah, you can also, updates on your coding journey. Like, what are you learning? What are the challenges? What are the frameworks and libraries that you want to try next? Like, ask for advice on things. Just say, like, hey, if you just tweet, dev people are the most helpful people in the world. Like, they will not leave a question unanswered. So if you say, hey, Twitter, has anybody worked with Svelte Native? So that's like still a relatively like new thing. You will get people replying to your tweet with like, oh, hey, I've tried it. Here's 3 links for it. Like, it's amazing. It's so good. So A, you're going to learn something, and B, you're starting a conversation and you're connecting with new people. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So I know somebody's just put a question in the chat, which obviously we're not to the end, but I feel like it's relevant to what I'm talking about. So how do you know if you're actually posting something useful or if it's just really basic and unhelpful? I don't think there's a right or wrong way to build a brand. And a lot of people like to say, I don't like the strong words of do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. As long as you're being genuine, and it doesn't matter if it's basic, you just have to think about what your target audience is. If you're a junior developer and you're sharing sort of, the beginner kind of like JavaScript tips, but when you're a developer, you never stop learning anyway. So I guarantee you, even if you think you're posting something at a beginner level, there's somebody more experienced that actually didn't know that. So obviously there's a line as well, on LinkedIn, you don't like, I'm not like, oh, super like professional, which if you see my LinkedIn profile, like you'll know that I'm quite like casual, but you don't want to be like too political, controversial, offensive. And if you're not doing any of those things, then I wouldn't classify it as unhelpful. It's going to help somebody. Let's just put it that way. It might help less people, but it'll still help.
Yeah, it's a bit of trial and error as well, I guess, isn't it? And finding the groove and the right thing that works for you, like what works for
Yeah.
you and your audience. So I think
Yeah.
once you get past that initial fear of being a regular poster and you get out there, you'll feel more
Yeah.
confident and you'll understand what people want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that I've learned over the past year. So a year ago, I had never delivered a talk. I'd never posted a video of myself on LinkedIn. I'd never been on a panel. I'd never done a podcast. I'd never done a YouTube video. And at this point, I've done all of those things over and over. But like the first time for all of them, I messed things up, really minced my words on like the panel. You know, I've done posts where like they haven't really got any likes, or maybe just been a little bit more like controversial. But at the end of the day, is you just move on and you just learn from like the mistakes, because growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. You have to step out of that, and you're going to be able to figure out what's right and wrong for you only if you do it. Like, you know, the only way you're going to fail is if you don't try, right? So what I mentioned about the like videos. So again, this is something that I don't see enough. I see recruiters do it a lot, right? You probably get loads on your LinkedIn feed, but I don't see like developers doing that many like videos about it, like people that work in tech. And I don't see why there's a reason that you can't, you know, to like put yourself out there, like have a chat about something that you've learned. It's going to be the most terrifying thing, and your camera roll is just going to be about 50 million takes of you trying to like record yourself. But, you know, for example, I record videos on talking about negotiating notice periods, how to deal with a job posting without a salary, mental health days, and like different things like that. So you pick something that you're actually really interested in. People are going to know if it's something that you're not, I think, as well. So like, because I love tech, I love well-being, I love mental health. So they're the things I post about. If I try to start posting about like something else, it's going to seem a little bit shallow, because you can tell like my heart's not really in it. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. And then also you can do like follow-up posts for like meetups. So I'll go on to that like in a moment. So networking is like a really, really good way to get your brand and your name out there. But I'll go through like a little bit of a checklist for that. So I'll just show you like a couple of posts that I just look like some screenshots of ones that I did like a little while ago, and just show like how quickly it can grow. You know, I just posted, you know, about this article, and my post literally used to get just like a handful of likes and not that many like views. You know, it was just like, this was like a web development thing. And then I posted about this thing because I felt really strongly about it: salaries on job adverts. So, you know, I just said that I want companies to be a little bit more like transparent. I know it's not possible like all the time, and I expected the same amount of like likes on this one, but then actually seeing how like 119 comments as well. So, you know,
that's
every
crazy.
time I
My
know,
jaw just dropped open.
yeah, and
So
this wasn't just an outlying case. Like, this started happening over and over. So you can share your like interview experience. You know, if you had like a really good experience with a company, like share it, tell people what was good about it, tell people why getting like good feedback is really important. You know, be careful talking about like negative experiences as well. You want to kind of try and spin it so that it doesn't sort of look like you're just kind of like moaning about it. But again, people want to read about those too, because it's important. It's just got to think about the way that you word it as well. So yeah, I mean, that was quite an interesting one. That was like a year ago as well. So there was very little time. I know it doesn't tell you like the exact date, but if you look at that, that's 1 year ago, 4 likes. 1 year ago, what was it, like 622? They were actually posted like very, very closely together. So you never know what you're going to share that is actually going to take off. And one of the things that I don't think I mentioned earlier as well is like, why is a brand great? Like, I know hiring managers that will reach out to developers because of what they're putting out on the internet, on their social media. It will present you with opportunities. I, you know, started getting invited to like come on to like live streaming podcasts and like panels with like Manchester Digital. And those opportunities would never have presented themselves if I didn't start putting myself out there. So if you want more collaboration opportunities, networking, speaking, job opportunities, you want to meet more people, you have to start with this. Which takes me on to the next slide. So I've made a little meetup checklist because I know as somebody who's been going to meetups for years, it's no longer a daunting thing for me. I really enjoy it, whether it's in person or it's virtual. Oh my God, these slides are just going wild. There we go. So I thought I'd just make a little bit of a checklist for anybody who might be new to the like networking scene and they're not really sure how to approach it. So this is a great part of building your brand. You're going to meet some great people and you've also got content to put on your social media. So what you're going to do is identify some local meetup groups through Meetup, Eventbrite, LinkedIn. They're the main platforms. If anybody has others that they use to find meetups, like feel free to put them in the chat. And then you want to try and get to like at least one event a month, especially right now with things being like remote. And then what you can do, you signed up to the event. Let's say you're going to Manchester Web Meetup in July. I'm just saying that because I also organised that one. So, and then what you could do is just take the link and share it on your LinkedIn. Say, hey, really looking forward to this event and the talks on insert. And tag the organisers and tag the people that are speaking because they're probably going to like and comment on it. Like I would do that. And then when you go to the event, introduce yourself in the chat and drop your socials. So I do this regularly. And I know it's putting yourself out there like a little bit, but all it takes is, hey, I'm Parul. I'm a JavaScript recruiter at Like Manhattan Partners. Really looking forward to the talks and meeting some new people. Here's my LinkedIn if anybody wants to connect. And I get at least 5 to 10 new connections just from that, which is nice. And then what you want to do as well is engage in the chat throughout, ask questions. People will remember your name if you do that. Oh my goodness me, this is driving me crazy. It just keeps moving through. And then you can connect with people who went. So on Eventbrite, you actually can't see attendees. So what you want to try and do is, if it's through Eventbrite, is make a note of the people who are in the participants, look them up on LinkedIn and add them. On Meetup, you can see attendees of like the event even after it. So you don't have to worry about that too much. And then if you can take a screenshot, especially if it's a virtual event, just take a screenshot while the event's running, you know, just like we're doing this, and then post it on LinkedIn. Maybe post a couple of like your key take homes from the event as well. And that's a really good way to start because you don't need to think about that much original content. People can see that you like putting yourself out there. And that's a good sort of, and then repeat. And even better when they're in person because you actually get to go like introduce yourself to people. But for anybody that is a little bit like socially anxious about meetups, get going to some over the next few months because I reckon towards the end of the year they're going to start going back to like in person. Not all of them, but it's a really nice way to ease your way in, and you get to learn some interesting things. Personally, I'm really excited for the in-person ones. So I feel like you get to meet people more, and also you get like free pizza and beer as well. Nice.
I love the in-person events.
Yeah.
It's not the food and beer, but that does make it really good. But yeah, you're right. This is such a good and easy way for like our students and stuff. If they're a bit nervous about what to post, this is just something that it could be posted like once a week, once every 2 weeks. Yeah, that's just really easy to do and just puts themselves out there and introduces themselves to new people. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, honestly, it's like a million birds with like one stone. Yeah. You're going to learn something about your industry, meet some new people. You've got some content to share as well. It's just an absolute like win-win. And right now with things being virtual, it's so much more accessible. You know, when they were doing them in town, it was the whole kind of, you got to go after work, after like a long day, and then you can get home at like 9:30. But right now you could just sit in your pajamas on the sofa eating.
Just have it on in the background or whatever.
Yeah, which is, you just reminded me another tip as well. If you're trying to get your face out there, try and have your camera on. I know it's not possible all the time because maybe like you're multitasking and like you're doing other things, which is fine. Like I do that as well. But like where possible, keep your camera on. It's just a really small thing of people being able to see your face is amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through a couple of the tips as well. So a massive aspect of building a brand that people seem to neglect on these kind of talks and like articles is like how much do you engage with other people's content is equally as important as what content you're posting and how much. So if you go on somebody's LinkedIn, if you go on my profile, for example, and you go on activity, you can see how much I like and comment on other people's posts, not just posting mine. And especially for those days or weeks where you're not really sure what to put out, like comment on people's things. You know, sometimes people will share an article and I'll comment on it, and I'll also give my opinion. I'll say like, hey, like this is you know, like this is a really interesting article. This is what I think about like this topic, on giving like constructive criticism, and like do that, you know, do that as much as possible. Because again, it's gonna, like, people who look at that person's post are gonna see your face, and then they're gonna want to connect with you as well, and that's where it just snowballs. So that's, yeah, honestly, it's a networking and building a brand is a two-way street. So don't just focus on like your own content. And on Twitter, it's really easy. Like, I just see a tweet, I probably reply to other people's tweets more than I tweet my own. So again, if you want some examples, just go on like my Twitter and LinkedIn profiles. And also one thing that I learned was keep your photos consistent across all platforms. So if somebody's trying to got you on LinkedIn and they're trying to search for you on Twitter, and you might have maybe a bit more of like a common name, and you don't have the same picture, it's going to be quite hard to find you. If you do have the same picture as your LinkedIn, it's going to be really easy for them to just spot you. Oh yeah, there's Parul, drop her a follow.
I've just learned my pictures are so different on Twitter and LinkedIn. I need to change it.
Yeah.
I know they're different in real life now, so
yeah.
I need to switch
it's a really like small, it's a really like small tip, but it makes it a lot easier for like people to find you. And also I forgot to add it in here, but there's a website called Linktree. I don't know if I can write in the, I can't write in the comments.
I can write in the comments. I'll send it out to everyone.
Sure. So it's Linkree. So this is a really handy website as well. And that's where the QR code, you know, on the first slide, that's where I got that from. So Linktree basically puts all of your links in one place. So if you put that on all of your social medias, it means that everybody can access it from anywhere, if that makes sense. So with my Twitter bio, it's my Linktree. So you click on my Linktree, you can see my Spotify podcast, you can see my Instagram page, you can see my company website as well. Like, everything is on there. I think that's a really nice thing to have as well. It just makes your profiles like really nicely like polished, I think. And also I know that I do post, I do also post LinkedIn posts with hashtags, but they're not the best for LinkedIn. You can put them by all means, but they're probably not going to do anything. The better place for hashtags is more likely to be on like Twitter and Instagram. That's where people are going to find you, and people, you're going to find other people. So Eve said that she changes her hairstyle every 2 months. Impossible to keep the same pic. You don't need to change it with the hairstyle, but as long as you have a consistent photo across your different like platforms, you don't need to like change it all the time. And you don't have to post original content every day. Like, sometimes I have days where I post 5-6 times a day on LinkedIn. I know that's really extreme, but I am a recruiter, obviously. And then sometimes I go like almost a whole week without posting anything. Like, people will tell you that you have to be original, you have to be consistent, you have to post every day. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because the algorithm on LinkedIn works a really weird way. Also, top tip, I learned this the other day, by the way. So if you actually reshare a post, the algorithm hates that. It really doesn't like it. So if you're sharing something directly from somebody else's LinkedIn post, it's not great. The better shout is to either do a screenshot of it and share the link, or just copy the content and then tag them in it. So now you know.
Yeah, I know that as well. It's like sharing a link, but putting a link in the comments works better than sharing a link.
Yeah. So it's just some of those things that you've got to have a play around with it.
I think they change the algorithm on LinkedIn all the time as well, so it's really hard to actually suss out what's going on there.
No, absolutely. Like, I try and share like my colleagues' posts, you know, with like jobs and things. And it doesn't ever really get anything. So nailing the algorithms is like, oh God, it's so hard to get right. But what you can do is, it's great for LinkedIn because you can see the views on your posts. So you can actually, so Sam said the same thing. The algorithm it really hates it. So what you can do is, if you're starting to build a brand, do a post every couple of days and see what the views are like. Just see what they're like, see how they're going up, see whether you've got links in there, see whether it's the hashtags that are like putting them up as well. So they're the kind of like main things. And also like being genuine. Like I think we can all collectively agree that there are certain people on LinkedIn who clearly post stuff for likes. They're probably made up stories and things like that. And that Oleg guy, Oleg Vish something. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think I've blocked them.
I've blocked him.
I've
He's so
got
annoying.
people on LinkedIn that I just kept seeing all the time, which is probably really bad, especially when I was a recruiter. But I was just like, I don't want to see them anymore. And people have probably blocked me though, so I don't mind.
No, it's all good.
They can block me, I'll block them back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so yeah, his posts were literally like you knew that none of them were his original stories, and he'd always put agree ? At the end of the post. So I don't know, that just invoked like an irrational fear an irrational anger inside of me. So don't just do things for like clout, like be genuine about what you're doing, because I think people can like really tell, and they'd rather connect with people that are like on the same level as them, as like, this is an Instagram. You're not trying to be an influencer. You're not trying to get like brand deals. You're just trying to get your name out there, trying to build your network and actually make your mark. And again, didn't put this on here, but like figure out what your niche is as well. So mine was, like I said, started to post about mental health, like my experiences. So, I was really open about it. So, I'd started on like CBT at like the start of the last lockdown. So I sort of like shared a little bit about that and like my experiences with it. And also just how much I was just struggling like last year. I think everybody was really. And in the space of a day, and this was right at the start as well, by the way, when I had like very little of a personal brand, I literally had about 30 to 40 people message me. Most of them like I wasn't even like connected with, just basically saying, do you know what, thank you so much for like being open and like talking about something that just isn't talked about like enough, struggling with like depression and anxiety and different things. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, that like that vulnerability, I think, is what brings people together a little bit more, rather than this false sense of kind of importance of some of the influencers, let's say. So yeah, essentially, I know I've like probably waffled a little bit on that like last one, but hopefully like some tips of sort of like what I've learned along the way. Also, on these useful links, I needed to add a few more, so there will be more stuff by the time it comes around to sharing the presentation. But if you listen to or watch anything, please make it that first link. So this is what introduced me to the idea of like a personal brand. So big love to Andrew B. Clark and Ben Cadell, absolutely brilliant guys. So Andrew's built up a really good brand through mostly like, his blog and LinkedIn and Twitter, and Ben is a bit more on like YouTube. So he has got some amazing videos, which if you're a developer, really recommend watching. His are the only ones that actually helped me understand Git as much as I can at this point, by the way. It still blows my mind. So do watch that. It is an hour podcast, but probably goes into a little bit more like detail than myself. And then also canva.com is an amazing website. Oh my God, wow. I make everything that I create on canva.com. This presentation is from canva.com. This is a beautiful template. If you want things to look good and spend little time on them, this is how you can write your CV on here. They've got some great templates. You can do presentations, LinkedIn posts. You can even make a LinkedIn banner. It is pretty much free to use as well. Except, I mean, you can get a paid version, but you don't really actually need to. So that's a good one. I'll add a couple of other links as well, but I feel like it does mostly like cover everything. And now I'm talking really fast, so I'm going to take a sip of water and say, is there any questions?
That was so good, thank you. And yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I know we've had a few during the presentation. But if anybody's got any else that they'd like to ask, feel free to put them into the comments, or if you can think of any, if you've sat later tonight and you're thinking of a burning question, feel free. I'm sure Parul will be able to answer anything for you. But yeah, if anybody else has anything, please feel free to add. But no, that was really helpful. And there's loads of things there that I've learned as well on top of that. I think it's just getting into the mindset that it is going to help your career, and it's going to do a lot of good for you. I think that's just sort of switching. And we don't just do it to make ourselves look good on LinkedIn, but there's actual reasons that people are doing it behind. Just
Absolutely. I think it really makes you stand out, you know. Really makes you stand out, because I don't get to work on the more like entry level roles often, but I was working on a graduate role for a while ago now, and I got about 40 to 50 applicants to that like job. And obviously I'm not gonna not speak to a candidate if they don't have links to kind of like their socials and things, but the profiles that really jumped out at me were like not the CVs that were really extensive and had experience, because it's an entry level role, right? But then if they've got a few links at the top and they're like, hey, here's like my Twitter thing, I tweet about stuff, sometimes tech, not really, I'm like, this is great, this is what we really like to see, because we're humans at the end of the day. And that's kind of the mindset that has shifted in like COVID. Like we're not like work machines. We're not just here to like, you know, churn out the code and things like that. People want to see that side of you.
Yeah,
they really
definitely. Yusuf's asked a question, and they've just asked, what advice would you give to others who are anxious about putting themselves out there? And I think that's a really big one actually for like the students who have never really done anything like this, because it is a big switch, just even like using LinkedIn. From like a lot of people who come to us have never even used LinkedIn. And they kind of don't even understand what it's about. So I guess it's what would you say to somebody who's quite anxious?
I would say start small and infrequent. If you try and overload yourself, it's going to stress you out like a little bit more. And look at other people's profiles and not exactly copy, but maybe just start to mirror like a little bit, you know, on the sort of content that they bring out. So if you're somebody who's really anxious, that's going to make you feel like, you know, I'm taking a bit of a safer route here to start off with. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have taken inspiration from many other people, particularly some great recruiters out there that have like a really good brand. You know, that's why I started like doing like the video. So you don't have to jump from doing nothing to doing videos and podcasts. There's a halfway point. So you start off small, start off safe, see what kinds of things like other people are like putting out there, and don't pay too much attention to the likes and the comments to start off with. And also just have a little bit of faith in yourself. About I struggle so much with imposter syndrome, right? So even now, sometimes I'll write, like I'll spend half an hour writing a post and I'll think, is this even useful? And I'm like, no, stop.
I do that, or I get late night post ideas and have to write them in my notes on my phone from getting to bed.
I mean, that's a really good one. So for like post ideas and like video ideas and things, I just have a note in my notes app where I just jot them down, because if I sit there and I try and think about it, there's like no way that anything is going to come to me. So yeah, you have to have a little bit more faith in you, because I think that's where the anxiety stems from, right? It's the imposter syndrome. It's the worry about, is what I'm putting out there like good enough? If you get rid of that, you are your own worst critic. Have a little bit more self-compassion for yourself. Do what you enjoy, put out some interesting stuff, take it a step at a time, you know, don't dive in like head first. And you know, to be honest, it doesn't go completely. You get a little bit more comfortable with doing it, but you know, with anything, you're going to get anxious outside of like your comfort zone. But you know, if you really want to accelerate in your career and you're serious about it, then it's the way to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And also feel free to ask somebody. Like, I'm sure you'll know somebody else who's on a similar journey to you, and feel free to just say, if I posted this, would this be really weird? I'm sure they'd say no, it'd be really helpful. I think that's the thing, is the dev community is, like you said, the most helpful community ever. And I think the more you learn about coding, the more you'll understand that. And yeah, it's very welcoming. The tech community as a whole is a very welcoming community.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's there to help you. No one's out there to like to get you, and have people that are kind of almost like informal, sort of, you know, like buddies or like mentors. It's not like you have a scheduled 30 minutes, somebody that you can go to for things. So, you know, like Andrew that I mentioned, I did that podcast with, you know, I ask him questions like regularly. He asks me questions like regularly, and we help each other. So you need somebody like that, you know, so you're not feeling anxious not on your own.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's it for the questions. Don't know if anybody else has any, if they want to put them in the next 10 seconds. But that's been really, really helpful. Thank you so much, Parul.
You're welcome.
Our video has been recorded, so it will be on YouTube. It will go onto LinkedIn. So if anybody would like that, please let myself or Parul know. But that's been great. That's been so good. I'm sure there's lots that people are going to take from that, especially me. I learned so much from that as well. I need to change my LinkedIn picture. But yeah, no, that was wicked. So thank you. And thanks to everyone
you're welcome.
who joined us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you everyone for like all of the questions as well. It's really nice to actually get your input on it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you everyone. See you. Have a nice afternoon. Bye.
Bye-bye.